It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome in to the Take Command podcast. That's Logan Paulsen. I am Craig Hoffman. And in just mere moments, Logan, Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl is going to join us.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, obviously that's the path of the draft starts in Mobile, and there's a reason that they say that. Most of those guys end up getting drafted. It's such a great opportunity to kind of flush out your evaluation, and it's such a unique part also because they're playing football. They're not, out in underwear doing testing. They're playing football. So you get to see kind of how guys take coaching, how guys respond to adversity, and how guys respond to a different level of physicality, especially if they're from, different levels of football, which has been cool to see over the last couple of years. So always fun to talk to Jim. They do such a good job of finding these guys and then getting them to the Senior Bowl. So I'm really excited to talk to him.
Yeah, Jim, an accomplished scout in his own right as well, formerly with the Patriots and the Seahawks before he ultimately took the job with the Senior Bowl. We'll say for those watching on the video, we just actually talked to Jim, so this is a little bit out of order. We will react to what Jim had to say and also kind of go further into some of the draft stuff on the back end of this podcast. But if you're watching the video of the interview, Jim had an auto tracker on his camera and we were short on time and we didn't have time to fix it. So it's kind of a mind bleep. His camera's kind of moving around with his hands and stuff. And we will admit it's a little distracting. We get it. It'll be okay. The information is phenomenal.
The information's excellent.
Just I wouldn't focus your eyes on Jim, not because he's not a good-looking man. It's just it might mess with your head a little bit. So take it in, take the audio, walk around, whatever you're doing, however you watch it on YouTube. But yeah, we know. So here's Jim and our interview with him, and then Logan and I have plenty more on the 2024 NFL Draft on the back end. Our guest today is Jim Nagy, the director of the Senior Bowl, just a man who knows so much about everything going on this time of year in the NFL, prospects, front office folks, got a great read on the coaching search type of candidates as well. So Jim, appreciate your time here on Take Command.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. By the way, runs, I think, Logan and I's favorite event of this time of year as well.
Absolutely.
I miss going down to Mobile as a beat reporter now that I'm stuck in a studio every single day. But, Jim, you have such a great feel, not just for the prospects that we'll talk about in a second, but for the front office type of folks around the NFL. Commanders get Adam Peters, who is widely considered the best guy on the market. What's your experience been like with Adam, and what do you think about that hire for Washington?
Yeah, AP and I were together for like 7 years, I want to say, in New England. Yeah, it was great. I'm happy for Adam. It was a really good hire. He's won everywhere he's been, and so he got out of that Patriots tree and kind of jumped into a new tree in Denver, and he won there, and then now he's won at San Francisco. So he's been a part of different winning organizations and not just the Patriot way. Like I went to Seattle after New England. It was a completely different way to do things, which is so beneficial as a leader, just to see different styles and different values, value systems in an organization. So no, happy for AP. He's obviously ready for it. He's been interviewing for these jobs for a while now, going through the interview process, and he could be selective. He was in a great situation. Why would you leave the 49er organization when you're competing for Super Bowls right now if you didn't believe it was the right fit and the right thing to do? So just really happy for Adam, happy for the Commanders organization. They got a good football guy.
Yeah, and obviously he's got a big decision coming up here in the draft, and obviously the coaching hire is going to be a big part of that. But probably quarterback at 2. You guys, obviously there's that 3 kind of the cluster 3 at the top there that everyone's really excited about. But you guys got some big names at the Senior Bowl. How do you view that pick, and like what direction would you go if you're Adam?
Yeah, it's certainly going to be dependent upon if whoever the new head coach is feels like Sam Howell could be a guy that you could work with. Because if you don't have to go quarterback right there, I mean, you can trade out. There's going to be people that want a quarterback. So you could Adam could his first year go out and get a lot of draft capital, which for any personnel guys is fun to think about, right? Starting off a new program, so that's going to be key, obviously, and. But these 3 guys that are being talked about as the top 3, Caleb and Drake and Jaden. I watched more of Jaden Daniels than the other 2 guys. Jaden was the guy that we invited. I went over there to Baton Rouge and did a in-person invite with him and really thought we were going to get him here because for a long time it was just Drake and Caleb. And then after the Heisman thing, like the media jumped on Jaden, and they've kind of ridden him all the way to the top of the draft now. So it'll be interesting. There are 3 different players now. I mean, Drake's down here training in Mobile right now for his draft process, and went out and saw him throw the other day, and went in and watched video with those guys of the workout. And so they're different, man. And I've seen a lot of Caleb, just doing tape of the USC guys over the years. So they're going to have three. If that's what they do, if they decide to stick there and go quarterback, I mean, you're talking about 3 very different players.
For sure. And then you've got the guys that are coming down to Mobile, and the hot name right now coming into the week seems to be Bo Nix. And there's thought he could rise all the way, who knows, top 10, maybe even. Like if all of a sudden he has the kind of week that we think he can have in Mobile, those of us that like him, how does that change the contour of this draft?
Well, it just brings more quarterbacks into play early. You're probably going to see more movement in terms of the draft. You're going to maybe see some teams trading around, that sort of thing. But yeah, and to me, I've always liked Bo. Had a lot of exposure to him down here in the state of Alabama when he was a high school player. He's the last guy in our state that's won back-to-back state titles at the 7A level, which is our biggest level of high school football down here. Obviously started right away at Auburn. We had a scout at his first game. We were scouting Justin Herbert in Bo's first game as a starter there at Auburn. And the ironic thing was, it's funny, I've got on-field video from that scout of that day, and Bo ended up wearing Justin's number 10 at Oregon by the time he was done. But I'll say this, like in terms of what Bo brings to the table, in my opinion, was, the biggest thing he did the last 2 years and the most impressive thing he did at Oregon, he shed a lot of bad habits. He developed a lot of bad habits at Auburn, playing behind kind of a porous offensive line, and he became kind of a sandlot player, which is a cool thing to have. That's a really cool tool to have at the next level when you're trying to learn in the NFL, to be able to run around and make stuff happen off script. And he did that at Auburn, but then he goes to Eugene and they really rein him in. And he, because mechanically he broke down, decision making he broke down, and he really reined it in and shed some bad habits in really 1 year. And then and had a couple different coordinators in Eugene. So there's a lot to like, man. I'll say this, like, he is all about football when out, because he's training down here as well with Drake May, and to be around those 2 guys. And his dad was actually out there watching his dad just won another 7A state title down here this year. So it is a football family, man. This dude is all about football and all about competing. And the teams are going to love that, right? Like the other 3 guys decided they didn't want to do this. I mean, this kid is going to take every opportunity to compete. So he is just a football guy all the way. So I know, like, the interview part of the process is going to be really good to him.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I mean, when you hear people talk about people that love ball, I mean, especially scouts and people who've been around it, obviously it kind of speaks to something that's like that, kind of that intangible quality. It's always fun to talk about. But you also have some other really interesting quarterbacks down there. You got Joe Milton, and you got the guy from, I forget his name at the moment, Tulsa, is that right?
Yeah, Michael Pratt from Tulane. He's the sleeper.
Yeah, that are very kind of talented. They all have their own warts. It just, credit to you, man. You guys seem to get very, very talented people every single year. What do you think about those guys, and what do you think about the rest of the quarterback class? Spencer Rattler also in that group.
Yeah, I would say, just hitting them real quick, Michael Penix was a big get for us. At the start of the year, if you would have told me we could get Bo and Michael, and I thought we were going to get Jaden at one point. Those would have been the big 3 of the senior class. But Penix and Bo were kind of the faces of college football this year. They both ended up in New York. So, Michael is a great deep ball thrower, very accurate. I mean, that's hard to find. But he's also got a lot more arm strength. I mean, just because you can throw it accurately deep doesn't mean you have, a really strong arm, but he does. I mean, I can't wait for the teams to see this guy throw on a field. I saw him 3 summers ago at the Manning camp over in Thibodaux, and this dude can hum it now. So it's going to look really good on the practice field. Michael Pratt, to me, is the sleeper of the group. I think a lot of teams have starter grades on Michael Pratt. He's a group of 5 guys, so you don't hear a lot about him in the mainstream media, but this is a dude that lifted a program. I mean, he took Tulane to a Cotton Bowl win over Caleb Williams 2 years ago. They only lost 1 game in the regular season this year. He's a winner. He's accurate. He's extremely tough. He can process. Like, he does a lot of things at a high level that NFL starters do. Spencer Rattler is a guy that, and I've said this on some other podcasts, like, there's always guys in the draft that that when you talk to guys in the league, I'm like, okay, the league's way higher on this guy than the media is right now. And usually it catches up. Like usually once we get through the process, by the time we get to April, the media talks to enough guys in the league where they catch on. The league's fired up to see Spencer Rattler here. He's another guy they think can be an NFL starter. And Joe Milton is a guy that I think he threw the ball 86 yards at the Manning camp this summer. I mean, he's got a rocket launcher for an arm. He'll have the strongest arm down here probably since like Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. He's in that category of like arm strength. So he'll be a lot of fun to watch as well. So it's a really cool group of players.
On the other side of the ball, I think one of the biggest needs for Washington is to find a premier edge. They obviously traded away Chase and Montez at the deadline. How does that class look overall, and who are some of the names to watch next week for you guys down in Mobile?
I would say it's a thin group, compared to past years. You're going to have to go get one up high if you're going to get one. You're not going to get much if you wait. It really thinned out for us for the Senior Bowl. It really did. I mean, there was maybe 5, 6, 7 guys, and then a huge cliff on our board. So Leatu Latu's coming to the Senior Bowl. He's got a chance to be our highest drafted player this year. Last year, Darnell Wright was our highest paid player at number 10 overall. Latu's a guy that, bottom line, he knows how to rush the passer, man. Like he knows how to set guys up. He's got a really good feel for it. He's a guy that's never out of a rush. Like you can cut him off and stymie him, and he just knows how to stay in it and counter and work a second or sometimes third move, and he plays his tail off. So it's not like he's just like this technician. Right. So he's a really accomplished pass rusher. And then some other guys down here. Marshawn Nealand is a name that I think people are going to learn coming out of Senior Bowl week. Adisa Isaac at Penn State. And Chris Braswell is a guy at Alabama that really got overshadowed the last 2 years by Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. But I've seen Chris's name in some of these mock first-round drafts, and he probably belongs up there. He's going to test well at the combine. He's one of the rare 5-star guys at Bama that didn't play right away and really had to earn his time and bide his time to get on the field. And then when he did, he really had a breakout year this year as a senior. So those are a few names. I think Braswell and Latu will probably go the highest of the group, and who knows, maybe Nealand and Adisa will sneak up there too in the second round.
Yeah, obviously Washington's picking there in the second round, and there's the guys that I think are interesting from a height, weight, speed standpoint in that group, like Darius Robinson and Miles Cole from Texas Tech. What do you think about those guys? And in terms of edge and just from having traits, could they elevate their draft stock with a good performance at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I think I didn't mention those guys because I think they're probably more like 5 techniques.
Interesting. Yeah, they are big guys. They're big body guys for sure. They're
big body guys. And Missouri played Darius Robinson out there on the edge this year. So he was like a jumbo edge for those guys. And I do think he runs well enough where he could do that. My last team I worked for was the Seahawks, and we had a Leo position in our 4-3 defense that Bruce Irvin played. I could see Darius doing that at 290 pounds. I mean, this guy, he is an absolute specimen. If you guys aren't going to make it to Mobile, if you saw this dude, the old getting off the bus deal, he's the first one off the bus. And he made a nice jump on tape this year. He was eligible for last year's Senior Bowl, kind of fell right below the line. We had him in the 5th round. I think he's definitely going on day 2 this year. And then Miles Cole is going to be the longest guy in the draft. He's got an 87-inch wingspan. It's really freaky. So, and he's a guy that can kind of move up and down the front. So it'll be a big week for Miles. I think, people question instincts a little bit with Miles, but he's going to test really well. He's super long. So in a league that's just valuing traits more and more year in and year out, Miles Cole is not going to fall to. If he does make it to day 3, he probably will make it to day 3. But I don't see him lasting very long on day 3.
Yeah, Logan will be down there. He will have to get our bus report. I will merely sit here in this chair and ask him for the bus report. Last thing for you, Jim, probably. We might be able to squeak in one more tight on time here on the way out. I saw your tweet last week about kind of the depth of this draft. There is a ton at the top, and I think people have been obsessed with the top of this draft because of how strong the quarterback class is, et cetera. Obviously, in Washington, we're psyched because we're at the top. But it does apparently really thin out. How unique is this kind of draft class in that way? And how do you think it ultimately affects the draft with teams potentially trading out on day 3 and trying to maybe get some more picks in the future?
Yeah, this is an hour-long answer, so we're going to have to pick this up on another episode.
Deal,
no,
done.
It was a really strange dynamic, guys. I'll try to pull it together as quickly as I can. Like, we can bring underclassmen this year, so that was a different dynamic. So in terms of like the invite process, we couldn't just invite 120 or 130 seniors right out of the chute. We had to like reserve certain roster spots at each position, and then kind of play the waiting game to see who was going to come out, and then if we could get them in the game or not. So what happened was, when guys weren't getting invites in December, a lot of these guys kind of, and this is from agents, this isn't me like pontificating, this is from the agent community telling me what happened and what coaches have told me what happened. Some players like push the panic button, that like, oh my, that didn't get a Senior Bowl invite, like that must mean the league doesn't value me. So they jumped in the portal, or they agreed to an NIL deal, and they're going back to school. So then when we got to like January, and we still had roster spots available because some of the juniors stayed in, or we didn't get those juniors, and we wanted to circle back to the next, work down the board, I would start making calls, and they're like, Jim, he transferred here. He's committed NIL here. So like the whole depth of day 3 just got totally wiped off our board. So I'm not complaining. We got the players we wanted for the Senior Bowl, but from a draft perspective, to me, rounds 5 through 7 completely fell apart. They're all going to be back in college football next year. So if I'm a team that's holding a lot of day 3 capital, I'm looking maybe to maneuver around on day 1 and day 2, and trade picks and move up and go get the guys we want up high.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously Washington, fortunately, has 5 picks in the top 100, so they can hopefully get in with what they need before that drop-off. But going to be interesting to watch for sure. Jim, Logan, will see you next week. I've got to get down there next year. I miss coming down there when I used to be on the beat up here. Always a great event. You guys have such a tremendous group this year. We look forward to watching it on TV, those of us that won't be in Mobile. And we will definitely have you back to unpack that answer and much more sometime after you get done with your day job down there with the Senior Bowl next week.
Well, awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys. Logan, I'll see you next week.
Yep, thanks.